well. Here we go with a super chat contribution coming in from Lemansky. Appreciate that. Widespread rain in the Midwest, 85% chance Saturday in Badgerland, Madison, and rain for South Bend, which sounds like a recipe to run the football with Audric Estime.
Yeah, and so USC fans might go, uh-oh, this is going to throw a monkey wrench into the passing game. But you know what? I'm going to say, bring it on, right? And this might be exactly what the USC offensive line needs to play a better game, to answer the challenge. The USC offensive line has been uneven. It's been spotty. But while the level of play from this USC offensive line hasn't been especially strong in recent weeks, let's also acknowledge Lincoln Riley is not putting this offensive line in the best possible position to succeed. I alluded to it earlier that, if teams are having 7-8 guys back playing center field, you have a light tackle box, you need to run the ball. And Lincoln Riley was not quick to do that against Arizona. Took him a while to do that. Once he did, then the passing game began to open up a little bit, and USC was able to find, a few plays. The passing game was never really consistent, but a few more plays opened up after USC ran the ball. You bring the linebackers up into the tackle box. So when we talk about Lincoln Riley needing to put this offensive line in a position to succeed, instead of coming into a game with the big picture idea of, well, we're going to throw against this defense or we're going to run against this defense. No, that shouldn't be Lincoln Riley's overall focus. It shouldn't be the 40,000 foot view. It should be what's right in front of his nose. Tackle box is stuffed, you throw. Tackle box is light, they're playing people back, you run. Like, it needs to be that simple. And with these conditions, USC might be more inclined, if it's rainy, as the forecast is for South Bend on Saturday, maybe this is what gets USC to lean into mashing some people, leaning on some people, establishing the run first. I mean, that's not usually how Lincoln Riley does it. He usually likes to come out gunning and then run later, mixing it in. But maybe the weather conditions will give Riley reason to lean on the running game as a first point of attack and then set things up for the downfield passing game with Caleb Williams. And that could be exactly what USC needs. That could be exactly the thing to light a fire under some fannies and get that offensive line to really, embrace the opportunity of being able to play ball again, being able to play at an elite level, because we have not seen this offensive line play at an elite level in recent weeks.
Thoughts about weather conditions, Tim, affecting SC's game plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you have thoroughbreds like and speed guys like USC has, we do have the speed advantage. We do have the better receivers, bar none. We got. I still say we obviously. I know there are a lot of Hartman fans there. We still have the best quarterback. We definitely have the better offensive coordinator. Mudding it down, making it messy, absolutely plays in the hands of Notre Dame, in my opinion. They got a big bruiser running back. Their offensive line looks suspect in pass protection, but they're still big guys, and they're going to run behind that left side with Alt. I'm not excited about getting to that team is a mutter, right? Not a thoroughbred's going to win you flat out, but they could just somehow plod through and get a win. Notre Dame loves making it ugly, making it dirty. They love making it messy. So I think this does not play in the hands of USC. USC is, by the way, we're not a finesse team. If you watch our quarterback, he doesn't finesse. He slams safeties into the end zone. We have our own thumpers too. So, I mean, it's tough. I watch our running backs with Austin Jones. He's not going to bat. He can battle through tackles. And Marshawn Lloyd has shown that he's a tough tackle as well. And then, they can go even deeper. So I think that it's going to be an issue of, can USC, I'm hoping LV's right, because LV's saying that the rain's going to break. Now, we could play in a little bit of mud. That's fine. Both teams slip. You know what I mean? I'd rather have us playing with a clean ball and not playing in the rain, because it's obviously going to limit our passing game. And they don't, that's our strength. They're strong on strong. Yes, they have Hartman, but again, questions about play calling, questions on the outside receiving. Those questions aren't there for USC. So we definitely want a passing game. In a passing game, you want a clean field.
I would agree with that. Like, if you were to ask me, do you want a clean game or a rainy game? Obviously, like, cleaner calmer conditions would play into USC's hands. But I said what I said in part because USC needs to stop playing mental defense. Instead of worrying what could be taken away, worrying that, oh, we could lose this game, we could lose our opportunity, worrying, thinking about what you're going to lose or what you could lose. You need to flip that around and say, here's an opportunity for us to win a big game. Here's a chance for us to grow as a unit. Here's a chance for us to build confidence and belief. Like Lincoln Riley needs to be more conscious of building positivity into this team, because I'm not really seeing it on the field. I'm not seeing it in terms of the way this team goes about its business. And just for Alex Grinch, for a brief moment, I mean, I don't know what exactly he's talking to his players, but whatever it is, it's not getting through. There has to be a way for Grinch to talk to his players in a way that's been different from before. Like, there has to be a different tone, a different point of emphasis in terms of what the coaches are saying to players, because the way they're going about their business up to this point, it's not resonating. There needs to be a different mindset from the coaches filtering down to the players for this game. So in that sense, maybe the adverse conditions gives Riley and Grinch an opening, a way to talk to these players about, hey, they think we're soft, rain, cold, night game. They think we're going to be a bunch of pansies and that Notre Dame's just going to roll right over us. Like, that's a motivational angle that this USC staff has an opportunity to do something with. And maybe that unlocks a new attitude and a new dimension in this team, which, does need to appear. Like, the way things have been going, business as usual, not going to cut it. Like, this team does need to grow up, and maybe adverse conditions in South Bend, while not what we would naturally prefer, Tim, totally agree with you there. Maybe that's like the spark plug that, and you didn't really want it, but maybe it's not what you want, but it's maybe what this team needs to really, take on a much better winning championship level identity at USC.
And the thing we got to remember is a lot of people like to call the USC Trojans the surfer boys from blonde hair with blue eyes. You got to realize that, Caleb played in the DMV. So he's not, I like this comment, rain will not affect Caleb's velocity on his throws. It probably won't. Being in the DMV, he's used to playing in the rain. You got guys like Pregnon who played in cold and wet in Wyoming. So, I mean, it's not like these guys are going to oh no, it's cold and rainy. I don't believe it's supposed to be cold. I know it's supposed to be wet. I don't know how cold it's supposed to be. But again, both teams got to play in the rain and the cold, and then they got you Irish. You have some you got some players that from Southern California, so they're gonna have to deal with it as well. So I think it'd be great. I hate all games that are played in inclement weather, because quite frankly, it detracts from. It's not football weather. It's crap weather. It's crap for the fans. It's crap for the game. The BS the Midwest always throws around like, oh, this is real weather. Yeah, it's real weather for you sitting in the house and having a cocoa, not to go play football, because it gets messy, it gets muddy, it gets stupid. And sometimes you see a team that's maybe, I don't know, a little less athletic, a little slower, actually get the edge. And that's what I'm kind of worried about.
It's going to be a bit cooler than what I expected and what our forecast here is a state away, but it's going to be like high 40s, low 50s. By that evening. So it's going to be a bit frosty, a bit chill in the air, along with possible rain. I personally would be concerned with Notre Dame. I think that USC is a better team, but not substantially better. I think they're better. I think they're a top 10 team, and maybe Notre Dame's a top 15 team. Like, I think there's not a whole lot of separation when you add it all up. Now, is USC more capable of blowing out Notre Dame than Notre Dame would be of winning it with a big margin against USC? I believe so. That's been Notre Dame's big issue in my eyes, has been twofold. Number one, the outside playmaking threats are non-existent. They don't exist. They're not there. They don't threaten a defense vertically. And then number two, their offensive line isn't what it typically is. It's just not nearly as good as its Notre Dame standard. I believe that the defense has played relatively well, and I've watched these games against the last three opponents. I think the defense is really good, and Hartman's fine. He presses late in games, as any quarterback would, trying to erase a deficit. Brett Favre once threw 6 interceptions and a playoff loss and was questioned about it afterwards. He's like, I'm trying to win the game, not protect my numbers. So when it's desperation time, you heave the ball downfield. But I think Notre Dame's still a really good football team, just a flawed and limited football team.
Yeah, my main thought about Notre Dame in this game is that, if you were to just look at it objectively, sizing up the personnel, sizing up, what the capabilities of each team, you would naturally make your first inclination to say USC's better because USC has Caleb Williams and Notre Dame has not been able to do much with Sam Hartman, not being able to score. So like just on paper, you would naturally be inclined to give the clear edge to USC. But we've seen plenty of times over the years Notre Dame rallying around the flag at home, whether as a national title contender or in cases like this where Notre Dame's a wounded dog, coming off a bad loss, smarting, but like this is the get right game. This is the play like a champion today game. This is the play with pride game. And, as a college football historian, Mark, you remember this quote from the great Beano Cook. There are 2 teams you never bet against at home, the Russian Army and Notre Dame. And so, plays into, Notre Dame could be 2-3, 4-4, whatever, but it's USC week coming into South Bend. Like if you're USC, you can't take this game for granted one bit. And this is the other thing that we've been talking about, kind of a recurring theme. Like Notre Dame should throw its best punch at USC, but USC needs to just transcend, and USC needs to get into this mindset of we're not worried about whether our opponent throws the best punch. If we play our best football, if we play up to our capabilities, if we play the way we're coached, the way we're taught to play, we're going to be better. And USC has not really reached that standard the last 3 weeks. I mean, against Stanford, sure, but Stanford's terrible. This is the time for USC to just plant its flag, play a good game against, not a great team. No one would say Notre Dame's great, but Notre Dame's a decent team. And at night, primetime, Saturday, NBC, Notre Dame's probably going to play a little bit above its pay grade. And USC just needs to plant the flag and establish the standard that everyone expects, the standard that we have not really seen in a meaningful occasion, in an appreciably big game this season. And, maybe just the realization of, in August, looking at this schedule, every USC player knew it. Like the first half of the season didn't look all that imposing. Like there's no game you circle on your calendar. I mean, the Colorado game kind of acquired some media buzz and some interest because of what happened with Dion. But like in August, no one was saying, oh, that Colorado game, that's a centerpiece game. But everyone knew before the season, Notre Dame, October 14th, that was when everyone had to really kick it up a notch and be ready to be at their best. And so maybe this team has just been mentally coasting, drifting. I'm not saying that's acceptable. I'm not saying that's the way you should play. I'm not saying that's the way you should be coached. But maybe human nature being what it is, this team's just kind of been, in second gear, and maybe this is the game it goes to first gear. I mean, I hope that's how it happens, but I'm going to say you can't just flip the switch. And that's what has me so concerned. Like, thought the defense would show up in the first quarter, with Bryson Shaw defending Alex Grinch heading into the Arizona game. Didn't happen. So, I'm not going to say that I'm optimistic, all right? But if you can still make an argument, maybe this is the time this USC team takes on a different mentality, and it will need to if it's going to beat Notre Dame on the road.
What I can't quite figure out, and I don't think anyone can answer this for sure, is that from a scheduling standpoint, that takes its toll on teams emotionally, mentally, physically. These two teams are coming at this game from completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Notre Dame had a titanic matchup against Ohio State a few weeks ago, and they gave it their best shot, threw haymakers, did everything they could, and were exasperated at the end of that game and just had their hearts ripped out of their chests on the final play of the game. Then they go to Duke, and we can dismiss Duke as not a brand name, not a big game, but Saturday night, Fowler and Herbstreit there, ABC there. It was a big game. They were only a 5-point favorite, and they had to pull that game out on a 4th and 16 play on the final drive. And then they go to Louisville. And again, I don't know what's in the locker room, what's going on in regards to how lightly or how seriously they're taking Louisville, but they obviously should have, because they were trampled in the second half after it being a very hotly contested game. Louisville was the team that was on its game late, and Notre Dame's coaching staff not on its game. And maybe the team was gassed after playing 3 marquee primetime type games. I don't want to lift them to the standard of a Notre Dame USC game. They're not. When I say marquee, I mean just what was on the line. Louisville's still an undefeated football team. So was Duke, and they were on prime time in front of everyone. So they have to get up a 4th consecutive time. So just a small slice of me says, well, Notre Dame's battle tested and USC's not. That's an advantage. Most of me says, well, USC, as you pointed out earlier, Matt, has this reserve of energy and focus and everything that's ready to be jettisoned in the direction of Notre Dame, versus Notre Dame now a 4th consecutive difficult game and tough opponent, and having to get back up for this. They're really going to need that crowd to lift them up.
It's a very interesting line of analysis. Hey, Mark, I know that you count on myself and Tim to kind of carry the conversation because you've had a full day of shows at the Voice of College Football, but I do have to ask you a question and make you work a little bit here. And that 2.5 quarters, boy, very underwhelming from Ohio State. How much does that make you rethink that Ohio State Notre Dame game in terms of what you saw in that game and how that, by extension, affects your overall perception of the Irish and just how good they are or aren't?
Yeah. So if we didn't know anything about these athletes going into 2023, the programs, the athletes, anything, and we were just taking this season on its own, then I would have a pretty reserved viewpoint on these two teams' capabilities. That I would consider them, they're good football teams, but they're not going to threaten for a national championship. However, I still have a level of trust in Ohio State's talent, much more so than Notre Dame's. And I think Kyle McCord was playing his first road game, difficult environment, all that. I think his level of play is improving markedly each week. Ohio State has an offensive line issue that if they clean that up, the rest of the team is playing pretty well. But to correct an offensive line mid-season, that's a tough chore, and that's what's really hurting them. Notre Dame, they what I was tired of watching in that game for 3.5 quarters was guys just running stick routes for Notre Dame and turning around and throwing their hands up in front of their face like they were, postmen, underneath the basket, waiting for a pass and just getting 6-8 yard passes thrown to them. But I looked up halfway through the third quarter and it's still 3-0. Then it's 10-0. And I'm thinking, well, it's working in terms of the Ohio State defense, keeping them off the scoreboard, but they were moving the ball between the 25s with that. They're not going to hit unless USC blows coverages. They are not going to win one-on-one matchups. I'm pretty confident in saying that. Although that Mitchell Evans is a clone of Michael Mayer in many ways. He is the next in line. He is really good, and he's the biggest threat that they have offensively from a receiver standpoint.
Yeah, I do think, Mark, that if Notre Dame's going to win, just in terms of not predicting this is going to happen, but I'm thinking, just if I'm a Notre Dame coach or player and I'm thinking, what's my best path to victory? It's not going to be airing it out down the field. I mean, though I do think Notre Dame's going to need to find some plays just to loosen up the USC defense a little bit, but it's really going to be, can we mash against the defensive front? Can we use our offensive line to control the ball, use Estime, feed him a lot? Move the chains, 8-minute drives, turn Caleb Williams into a spectator. I mean, I just think if you're looking at this from Notre Dame's viewpoint for a moment, that's the most direct path to victory. Get close to 40 minutes time of possession, and you don't give Caleb Williams very many possessions, and maybe you give Caleb and USC 8 possessions. Well, he might have to score on 5 of them, at least 4 of them, if USC is going to win. So that to me seems to be Notre Dame's path, to lean on the ground game, occasionally sprinkle in a play action pass, but really shorten the game as much as possible. That seems to be Notre Dame's best chance on Saturday. But for USC, like, if you lose this game, now it would be a crusher for the playoff, but it's not a conference game. So like the Pac-12 championship game and winning the conference title, that would still be very much in play. And so if Alex Grinch face plants against a struggling offense and a struggling offensive coordinator for Notre Dame, you either bring in Greg Brown from his defensive analyst chair to take over the defense, or you try and figure out another plan. But I really do think that this is a game in which Alex Grinch should be coaching for his job. And some people might say, well, that's hot take city. You're taking it way too far. That might be true. And by the way, like, I don't think Lincoln Riley's going to make this kind of move. So I'm not predicting it will happen. But I think if USC really takes itself seriously as a championship level football program, and Alex Grinch just completely slips on a banana peel against a not very good offensive coordinator, Jared Parker, gonzo. That's my opinion.
So here's my take on that, because I'm tired of covering this one. You're right. He's not going to fire him, because no head coach is going to fire him. They're 6-0. So you're going to fire him at 6-1 for losing to Notre Dame. At that point, the entire season is still ahead of us, Matt. Literally, it's not a conference game. So USC still has a chance at the conference. And if you fire Grinch, you kiss the conference goodbye, because they're not going to change in the middle of the season. They're not going to change the scheme. They can't. You're not going to do that. So the best chance to win this season is to stay with Grinch. I will agree with you that if he goes into Notre Dame, lays an egg, and costs us that game on national television, greatly impacting their chances of making the playoffs, because you still have Oregon, you still have Washington, you still have, who knows what rising he may come back from the dead and play at the Coliseum. You still have UCLA. There's a lot of tough games still on USC's schedule. And if they drop this game to Notre Dame, it's going to make it almost near impossible to get through the rest of the season, including a championship game, without a loss. So this game is pivotal, but they're not going to fire him. And quite frankly, in my opinion, they shouldn't fire him, because again, we still have all the eggs in front of us. You're right. We lose to Notre Dame. We probably lose the playoffs, but we still have a chance to win the conference. And I haven't been brainwashed by ESPN. The playoffs is not the one and only thing you do in college. It isn't. And to win the conference, or the last Pac-12 conference, to me would be, not the goal. It would be a huge disappointment. This is a playoff team, in my opinion. Ability and players, this should be a playoff team. And whoever's accountable for that should lose their job, regardless of what the reason is. If the defense costs us a shot at the playoffs, I think Grinch will be gone, But firing him midseason, I know that's what the fans want to hear. They always want to fire someone, because the fans think that if we fire him, we bring him in and we're going to fix the season. No, we fire him, the season's over. So we got that Grinch guy, because, okay, great. What does that get you? Probably get you 1 or 2 more losses. That's just me. That's too emotional. I can't do it.
Fair enough. I would say that losing to Notre Dame and Jared Parker is what would end the season, not making the actual move to fire Grinch. Again,
I mean, it's game 7. If you want to throw the white flag up in game 7, that's fine. But we'd still be undefeated in the Pac-12.
Yeah. Against Arizona State, Colorado, and Stanford.
What do you think our odds of winning? And I want your honest truth. Do you think our odds of winning go up or down if you bring Brown in as the defensive coordinator? You fire the guy whose scheme it is. You think it goes up? Because Brown has no experience. He has 1 year of experience at DC.
I wouldn't say the odds go down.
Come on, Matt.
I'd say it's 50-50.
Notre Dame is 17th in the nation in yards per play. And I'm not saying that is
Tennessee State had a lot to do with that.
I understand. I understand that, but everybody has their Tennessee States on the schedule, and Notre Dame has played 3 really good teams the last. I would say Ohio State probably has a top 15 defense in the country, and Duke and Louisville are probably more in that 35 to 40 range. So yeah, and they played a MAC school before that. Before that stretch, they played Navy, Tennessee State, and a MAC school, whoever it was, Central Michigan.
Was that yards per play, Mark?
Yes.
Because I mean, I'm looking at what I'm looking at is the net, right? Is the points per play margin between the two, and they're like the 20th in the country.
Yeah, 6.98 yards per play on offense. Washington's number 1, USC's 2, Oregon 3.
And like the jump is like well over a yard, I would think, correct?
Oh,
per play.
Well, Washington's at 8.8. USC's at 8.4, and Oregon's at 8, practically 8 flat, and Notre Dame's just a shade under 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge leap between the top 5 echelon, and then you get. I'm not saying they're crap, but also like we talked about. I mean, you guys are telling me these ACC, I think Louisville played a great game, and we're talking about these defenses. But I think you need to keep it. There's a lot of people that are still already downplaying the Pac-12 and Pac-12 football, and I mean. Well, I'm not ready to anoint the ACC as world beaters either yet.
I'm not downplaying Pac-12 football. I just ranked it as the best conference in America a couple of weeks ago. I'm not downplaying Pac-12 football, but I'm downplaying some of the schedules because the schedule hasn't been played out yet in the Pac-12. Only 2 or 3 out of 9 league games have been played. So I'm not downplaying the Pac-12. I'm playing up Notre Dame's schedule versus a lot of other teams across the country because they've played Ohio State, Duke, NC State, Louisville. They've played a decent schedule. And while that doesn't sound like a great schedule, compare that to most teams' schedules.
Yeah. No, that is a good schedule. I'm not saying it's bottom of the barrel, but at the same time, though, the Ohio State I give you, but I'm not ready to anoint. Louisville has a great start to the season, and Austin and I were celebrating it yesterday. They got some playmakers, but I'm not sold on them being anything super special in football. Everyone's talking about last night. Ooh, Louisville. It's like, yeah, Louisville had a good game.
Not what I'm trying to sell, but I'm selling the 17th rated offense in yards per play against good competition. I'm not elevating Louisville to Georgia's standards or Duke or anyone. And I'm not even completely sold on the Ohio State defense, although Maryland typically puts up yardage and points on most teams, and they held them in check.
I'm escaping the guy's. I'm forgetting the guy's name. So McCord's the first time. I mean, he's not a freshman, but he's a new quarterback. He's had a little bit of struggle with your offensive line. It's the Cal quarterback that Jack Plummer over at. I mean, they haven't played any great quarterbacks. So I'm going to say I wouldn't consider that the Louisville offense or the Louisville defense. As far as them being elite, I'm not seeing those things.
I didn't go anywhere near the elite level. Again, 7. We were trashing the Notre Dame offense, talking about how limited it is. And I said all those things.
I was trashing the Notre Dame.
I was as well.
I'll take ownership.
I was as well. I don't believe that they've got playmakers on the outside. I've seen a lot of Notre Dame football. I watched the last 3 weeks, start to finish. I saw quite a bit of the NC State game, and the Navy game seems like it was like 4 months ago at this point. I don't think that they have playmakers that are going to threaten this defense downfield. And I believe that their offensive line, by most team standards, would still be a good offensive line, but it's not a vintage Notre Dame offensive line. And I think those are 2 huge limitations. So I was just responding that I was surprised to see. I'm like looking down around 60, 70, looking around, and then I go all the way up to number 17.
It's a lot higher than I ever would have expected.
But isn't that an indictment on the teams that they played then? If they have a sluggish team that looks very bad offensively, but they're still putting up big numbers, I'm just saying, then maybe the defenses they're playing aren't too stout.
Yeah. Duke held Clemson to a touchdown. And Clemson shot themselves in the foot. I understand that repeatedly, but they still held Clemson to 7 points. And, you know, we can always play this game of going to the next team and the next team and how good are they, and how good are they, and how good are they. But I still think Clemson, despite their issues and losing 2 games, they're still a top 25 level team.
Well, it's not like that they're a pushover. I mean, I think that the truth, again, like always, is somewhere in between. I don't think that they have a terrible offense, but I think that USC, even with the struggling defense, this is not good. I don't think in the beginning year I thought it was be one of the better offenses they played. But the way their defensive pass protection, the way their pass protection was in that Louisville game, and the just amount of drops and the playmakers on the outside for them, you know, you have Hartman, which is an upgrade. You have Estime, who I have all the respect in the world for, and the other back. I love their other running back. They've got good running backs. I thought they would pair that with a really good offensive line and a solid passing game, because that's what you need. You need to balance, and that would have crushed USC. I think that. What does USC do well, Mark? We pass. We're a pass rushing team. We pressure quarterbacks. What are they having trouble? What did we see in that last game? They couldn't protect Hartman for anything, and that's a bad recipe. So that means they have to rely on the run game. If you rely on the run game, you become one dimensional, and that's when things go sideways. I don't know. I think it's gonna be a great game. It's Notre Dame. It's in South Bend. This is gonna be muddy. It's gonna be a nasty game, and I hope it's a great game.
I'll tell you the other number I was surprised to see, and this is not factual, this is a projection, but Vegas has placed Notre Dame as a 2.5-point favorite. I would have guessed that USC would have been about a 4-point favorite. That would have been my guess.
Yeah.
Historically, South Bend, USC does not win in South Bend. Go back forever. Some of the better USC teams, they go to South Bend and they lose.
And I also think Notre Dame's a smart. I mean, Mark, totally agree with you. I would have said USC by like a 5.5 points. But just, you know, thinking about this, processing it, you know, this is an expectation of where the public is in terms of where the money's likely going to come in evenly on both sides. And Alex Grinch is much more of a national punching bag than Jared Parker is. Like, Notre Dame fans are furious at Jared Parker, but Alex Grinch is that national. He has national reach, you know, not in a good way, but like Alex Grinch is going to be such a storyline heading into this game. And I think that's why, like, there's a sense that the public awareness of USC's flaws is pronounced enough that Notre Dame still checks in as a small favorite. It's also, you know, the Beano Cook quote from earlier, Notre Dame rallying around the flag at a home night game.
Really quickly, sorry guys. On the bottom, I put in, these are all of our members that you guys have been working so hard for. There have been a number of members that have been longtime patrons of the channel. Romney here is on the highest tier. So I put him as champion. And I got to talk to you, Mark, about the different setups, because somehow you have Big Ten champion, and you got Heisman Trophy, and I didn't understand the levels, but I put it by month.
Understand the levels.
Yeah, I don't know why the Big Ten
champion. I was looking toward the future, of course. Looking toward the future. They're thinking, okay, this is something USC fans want to hear. Yeah, we're going to go win the Big Ten championship. So that was the thought process. And of course, this is the school in the land of the Heismans. So does that not fall into place?
We like our national. Why don't we put 11 national championships as our number one group? I think that's what we're most proud of here at USC, is the fact that we've got 11 national championships.
Okay.